Hello recruit, and welcome to the second half of an Astroneer Academy Extra, where we are exploring the various regions of the planets and moons found within the Sylva Planetary System. We begin things today close to the starting planet Sylva as we explore its moon, Desolo, or Desolo, okay, however you want to say it. So let's get this out of the way. A lot of the planets have Latin names, and technically there is a correct way to pronounce each one. But you know what? Don't be that astroneer who gets hung up on how to pronounce a planet's name. No matter how someone pronounces Desolo, you know what moon they're speaking of. Anyway, small rant over. Desolo is the moon of your home planet, Sylva. Desolo is the only place you can behold a view that can be incredibly breathtaking, the Sylva Rise. With the near ever-present background rumble and hum of Desolo, the view of Sylva rising or setting on the horizon is a spectacle you simply must see for yourself. While the other moon in the Sylva Planetary System offers a similar view of its parent planet, I personally feel that the view of Sylva from Desolo takes the prize. Nearly all natural landing zones on Desolo will be located inside of a crater, so that will most likely be the first region you encounter when visiting. Be sure to bring a drill for your terrain tool, as some of the terrain on Desolo is harder than the terrain of Sylva. The crater regions are noted by their yellow and brown terrain and can vary widely in their size. Some craters may be so small that your shuttle barely fits. Others can encompass a vast expanse that stretches beyond the horizon. Most craters have a fairly smooth surface, making it easy to drive or walk across. Larger craters can feature rock formations and may even be punctuated by small hills. The larger craters are also often home to numerous clusters of dagger roots. Regardless of their size, the craters will often have fairly steep walls that will lead up to the other surface regions, most notably the Flats region. This region is notable for its bleak, gray terrain and geothermal vents. This region is also where you can typically find a very unique point of interest as well, though we'll talk more about that in Astroneer Academy 306. As the name implies, the Flats region has mostly flat terrain. While you may encounter a few irregularities in the surface, they typically do not pose much of a challenge. The flats give way to frequent orange-capped hill regions that are usually filled with dangerous dagger roots, tall, spiked rock formations, and steep drops into small craters. These smaller craters in the hills regions typically will not trigger a region change notification on the compass. The hills can be a bit challenging for vehicles, especially the large rover, though a drill and paver can ease your passage. Beneath the surface, Desolo has layers of caves similar to all other planets and moons, just not as many of them. Moons are smaller than the planets, so it stands to reason there isn't as much space to explore beneath the surface. In fact, if it weren't for the compass indicating that you would move to a different region, you may not even realize that you've dug deep enough to pass from the caves into the mantle layer. The lower gravity might be one giveaway, but the mantle regions of Desolo and the other moon in the Sylva system are not populated by any unique flora or breathtaking views. The mantle is also only one layer deep on Desolo, so if you continue digging down, you'll be in the core region. Aside from the large purple structures found in the outer core, the core region of Desolo mostly resembles the cave layers above. Now let's move on to Vesania, or Vesania. Again, pronounce it however you wish, we'll all know exactly which planet you are talking about. Fun fact, the rough translation of Vesania from Latin into English means insanity or mental derangement. Both of those definitions work for this planet because it's just kinda nuts. Everything, and I mean everything, on this planet is lumpy or bumpy or just plain weird. Plus, the entire joint is absolutely covered in organic. Plan on using a rover on Vesania to collect some Titanite? Then also plan on collecting about 10 organic for every single Titanite you dig up. Anyway, let's look at the regions of Vesania. The Valley region is a technically correct name, the best kind of correct, as it is typically found between hills and mountains. The land is rarely flat though, and instead tends to feature gentle rolling hills filled with large trenches that can often give way to shallow caves. Its pink and purple soil will frequently be covered in these bizarre alien egg-like rock formations that can appear solo or in large clusters. You will also encounter geothermal vents throughout the valley region. The rolling plains can often be mistaken for the valleys as they share several characteristics. If you pay attention to the details, you'll quickly see the differences. The hilltops are often higher than the gentler dune-like hills of the valleys. While they both feature trenches that can lead to shallow caves, the terrain in the rolling plains has large bluish sections between the slightly darker fuchsia hilltops. The rolling plains will also typically feature forested areas, which can become quite densely populated with trees and boulders. The rolling plains will often give way to the mountain regions, and the transition can be subtle. The terrain is slightly darker, the hills become taller and more steep, and there are fewer rocks. Oh, and the trees are completely different in the mountain region. There are some small, somewhat flat areas separating the peaks and mountains. Well, okay, so not flat exactly, not much is on Vesania, but they're less round than the surrounding mountaintops. Honestly, most of the region names on Vesania are a bit of a misnomer. The rolling plains seems to emphasize the rolling part of the name instead of the plains part. The valleys rise and fall in ways quite atypical of what usually defines valley. And the mountains just appear to be somewhat tallish hills. It gets weirder still when we move into the final surface region of Vesania, the one actually called hills. I don't know about you, but when I think of hills, lumps of terrain seemingly floating in the air isn't what comes to mind. It's almost as though the hills themselves have eroded away in an irregular fashion, leaving exposed what would have been a shallow cave system below. You would think that maybe moving down into the caves region would bring about something less weird. You'd be wrong though, at least in the first cave layer. Everything here is just as blobby and round as the surface, only it's mostly blue and incredibly dark, and all those rolling hills can cast huge shadows that absolutely hide the holes leading down to the lower cave levels. At least there's a lot of lithium to be found down here. As you dig down further, the cave regions do become a bit more normal, featuring flatter cave floors of varying elevations. Don't let that lead you into thinking that Vesania is done being weird. It isn't. If you continue digging down, you reach the mantle layer and the weird factor shoots right back up. This is one of the few mantle layers that will usually lack luminescent particulates. In fact, it is just rather dark in the mantle of Vesania. That makes all of the truly bizarre neon-colored plants really stand out. There are strange bright green trees growing upside down with their roots embedded deep into the cave ceilings. On the cave floors are massive plants growing out of what almost looks like broken pottery. Even the smaller bits of organic sport incredibly bright colors. The mantle region is also the only place you can reliably find ammonium on Vesania. It does appear in very limited quantities on the surface, but it can be difficult to find given the hilly terrain up there. You'll be able to locate very generous deposits of lithium and titanite in the mantle as well. The core region of Vesania completes the insanity. Just look at it. What is even going on down here? There are holes everywhere. Small holes, big holes, just holes everywhere. You can easily see right down to the gateway engine in the center of the planet. Bringing a vehicle down here can be risky. Given the low gravity, it can be very easy to misjudge your braking point and you wind up falling right into the center of the planet. Even the resources are weird way down here. On nearly every other planet, you will typically find quartz and graphite mixed together. On Vesania, it's just quartz with graphite nowhere to be seen. There is one big redeeming quality on the mantle region of Vesania, however. It is home to several exodynamic research aid units sporting the astronium symbol on their side. If you think back to Astroneer Academy 104 and 105, you learned that this special research aid contains QTRTGs instead of research. If you really need QTRTGs and you have a high tolerance for the truly bizarre, then grab a bunch of Astronium, head down to the Mantle region of Vesania, and try not to fall through all the holes. Novus is the moon of Vesania. Being next door to such a strange place hasn't impacted Novus too much, however, as things are fairly tame here. You will encounter a lot of similarly colored terrain, geothermal vents, ample organic and the same hazardous flora, but that's pretty much where the similarities end. It does stand in contrast to the other moon in the Sylva Planetary System, Desolo. Unlike Desolo, Novus has an atmosphere and features a much brighter color scheme. Similar to Desolo, nearly all natural landing zones on Novus are found within the craters region. These craters will once again vary quite a bit in size, with some being very small, with others covering a much larger area. The terrain found in craters is typically flat, though you will find smaller, shallow cratered areas within the larger craters. The crater walls are usually fairly steep, with some being outright sheer cliffs. Novus has an incredibly short day and night cycle, which we'll talk more about in a few moments, and it seems to be much darker at night than other locations. Because of this, you will want to keep an eye out for the small to medium-sized holes that drop down to the caves below. These can be especially difficult to see at night. The craters are home to geothermal vents, as well as some of the most beautiful objects that you will encounter during your adventure, the fractal roses. We will discuss the significance of the fractal rose in Astroneer Academy 402. As you make your way up out of the craters to flatter land, you encounter the Flats region. Marked by dark shades of purple terrain, the Flats region is a bit of a misnomer. The terrain is actually quite bumpy and can be full of numerous rocks, trees, and geothermal vents that can make travel a bit challenging. The Flats is also home to numerous hazardous flora that can sometimes be hard to spot, as their colors blend in quite well with the terrain colors of the Flats region. The Flats also feature numerous trenches that quickly descend into the cave region below. The Hills region features small to medium hills punctuated with a handful of towering peaks. Most of the hills are connected by very thin ridges that can make traveling from one hill to the next a bit of a challenge. The pink and brown terrain of the Hills region often gives way to numerous large openings hidden between the peaks. While most of these openings lead only to shallow surface level caves, some do descend into the cave region below. If you're looking for lithium on Novus, concentrate your search around the taller peaks in this region. When you descend down into the cave region, you might feel a tad claustrophobic. The ceilings are quite low, and there are numerous cavern walls dividing up the area into several smaller sections. The cave floor is fairly flat, though it is divided up into various elevations. Like most other caves, there are also small to large holes that drop down to the cave layer below. As you descend into lower cave layers, the spaces open up with higher ceilings, but the difference in the varying elevations will increase. Further, the space between each elevation is often a steep drop-off to the lower cave floor, increasing your risk of fall damage. The mantle of Novus is similar to that of Desolo in that it is remarkably unremarkable, appearing at first glance to simply be yet another cave layer. The disparity between elevation heights increases, though the lower gravity significantly reduces your risk of fall damage. In fact, thanks to the lower gravity, you may even be able to scale up the sides of all but the tallest sections in the Mantle of Novus. While you are down here, you should be able to locate generous deposits of hematite and lithium. Moving down into the core of Novus, you will once again find quartz and graphite in separate deposits. That is, if you can see these resources. The ceilings often blend into the walls of the mantle, reaching all the way down to the floor of this region. That can make it rather difficult to see much beyond the reach of what your spacesuit's built-in light can illuminate. We wrap up our tour of the Sylva Planetary System with my other favorite planet, Glacio. What appears to be a frozen wasteland stands in stark contrast to the arid environment of Calidor. If you spend a moment to take in the sights and sounds though, I think that you'll find that Glacio is rather special. The sound of the wind is an ever-present companion on Glacio, whether it's blowing gently or reaching howling speeds. And if you listen closely, you'll hear the sounds of the ice under your feet cracking and popping as though it may give way at any moment. While a cursory glance at your surroundings may lead you to believe all of the terrain is just a big, bleak, white expanse, a closer inspection reveals these are actually pale shades of blue, aqua, and green. The ice plains of Glacio are fairly large, relatively flat regions of varying elevation. Some sections may rise far above the surrounding plains, which can make traveling both difficult and dangerous. If you spend a moment exploring, however, you will usually discover areas where the differing elevations meet, or ways you can travel between them by using the base of the next region we will discuss. In the ice plains, you will encounter groups of thin, spiky rock formations, sometimes accompanied with large, nearly conical rock formations. Organic is incredibly scarce in the ice plains, and only appears in very limited amounts near these rock formations. Oh yeah, keep your eyes open while in the ice plains. Not only do boomaloons appear with high frequency, you will also come across volatile cataplants, often in groups of 3 or more, just waiting to take you out. The glaciers of Glacio are often mistaken for mountains. Their sides can be sheer cliffs with an incredibly steep drop off to the regions below, but they can also be gentler grades that are quite easy to walk or drive right up. The top of the glacier region may be simply a slim ridge or a vast expanse of rolling hills rich in generous ammonium deposits. It is at the top of the glacier region where you will discover numerous types of rock formations ranging from these incredibly large rocks all the way down to these smaller flat rock formations. Organic is mostly absent in the glacier regions, though you may find some spike rock formations from the ice plains in the areas where the two regions blend together. The rock garden region consists of relatively short, very jagged terrain consisting of very soft snow-like terrain and darker, much harder rocky terrain. The rock garden region may be quite small with just a few clusters of these formations. They can also be quite large and have a series of very narrow canyons winding between the peaks. The rock garden region is one of only 2 regions on Glacio where you can find ample organic, and it appears here in numerous shapes and sizes. The tundra region is the second location you can find ample organic, though otherwise it stands out as very unique. These thawed depressions of the planet's surface are made of terrain with numerous shades of reds and browns that will vary in hardness. Organic is abundant in the tundra region, as are holes that lead down to the caves below. These can be quite small and, due to the uneven terrain here, can sometimes be easy to overlook. Use caution around the frequent geothermal vents that appear here, as they may launch you up into the air, guiding you right to one of those small holes. The tundra region is marked by large, tall trees with what appears to be a rather rocky top and shorter, rounder trees with long, spiky leaves. You may also encounter stalagmites pushing up from the cave region below, and you may even discover some resources typically found in caves appearing in the lower sections of the tundra region. And you may also encounter these unique rock formations that resemble large arches in the tundra region. The cave regions of Glacio start out relatively flat, though they will be littered with small rocks and stalagmites. Most of the caves are fairly wide open, making it rather easy to scout out resources and other points of interest. There are some areas with lower ceilings that can often blend into the cave walls, limiting your visibility, but these will typically give way to a more wide open space. As you descend into lower caves, the ceilings will open, but so do the variations in elevation, the gaps between the flat areas, and the size of the holes that you can fall through to the cave layer below. The farther down you go, the more difficult it becomes to traverse on foot. A rover with a drill and paver is the play for the depths of Glacio's cave regions. The mantle of Glacio is quite unlike anything we have seen in our tour of the Sylva Planetary System. Some areas of the mantle will be incredibly small and seemingly closed off to other areas. Aside from the occasional geometric flora, the mantle layer may seem rather unremarkable. The second layer of the mantle kicks everything up a notch. I'll be honest with you and admit that my vocabulary fails me somewhat in the mantle of Glacio. I struggle to find the words to properly describe what we're looking at. So I'll just show them to you and hope you don't laugh too much at my inability to properly describe all this. There are large geometric structures with big blue pulsating tops. Then there are these even larger structures with massive blue pulsating spheres covered in an irregular surface. All around, you'll find small geometric shape organic. And while some areas feature the luminescent particles we've seen in other mantle regions, others do not. You will also find a lot of these brightly glowing snowball-like research items that are not only kind of pretty, but they're also pretty valuable, netting you 6,300 research bytes each. Finally, we have arrived at the last region to discuss today, the core of Glacio. While the surface is mostly flat, there are numerous stalagmites and smaller rocks that can block the path for a vehicle unless it has a drill and paver equipped. The ceiling and the floor in the core region often blend, forming very thick walls that can create numerous small chambers. Graphite and quartz remain separated, and clay makes a rather abundant appearance once again. Of course, it seems volatile cataplants are everywhere as well, so proceed with caution. Before we wrap up today, I want to take a moment to discuss the length of the day and night cycles that you will encounter during your journey through the Sylva Planetary System. Not every destination is rotating in space at the same speed, so the days and nights will vary in length. The shortest day-night cycle will be experienced on Desolo, coming in at just under 2 minutes long. A day on Novus takes just a bit longer at around 3 minutes 40 seconds. The days and nights are longer on Sylva, clocking a full day at 10 minutes. Calidor and Vesania seem to be rotating at the same rate, with the day-night cycle on each requiring just over 13 minutes 20 seconds to complete. Glacio and Atrox also share a similar length day-night cycle, coming in at 15 minutes. So it's not your imagination, the nights really are longer on both Glacio and Atrox. I should point out that the times I observed for the day-night cycle do differ somewhat from what is noted on the official Astroneer Wiki. The differences range from as little as 10 seconds all the way up to 5 minutes. I'm not certain why I have different results than the wiki, but I am confident in my testing methodology. I will be reaching out to SDK Phoenix, the Astroneer Wiki admin, to dig deeper into this disparity. Over the past 2 weeks, you have learned all about the Sylva Planetary System, including identifying the regions found on each planet and moon, and the length of the day-night cycle. Next week, in another Astroneer Academy Extra, we will take a look at spaceports and why they are absolutely amazing. And 2 weeks from now, in Astroneer Academy 202, we will begin our discussion of composite and atmospheric resources. Until then, I'm Brandon, reminding you to keep looking to the stars.